What if the man you helped fix a bike in the rain turned out to be the billionaire owner of your company? Would you still walk away without asking for anything in return? Hello, wise and wonderful listeners. Your deep empathy and sharp insight are exactly what this story honors. Today's tale is about a humble groundskeeper whose quiet act of kindness during a storm unlocks a second chance he never saw coming. Stay with us, because what begins with a broken bicycle ends with a legacy that will warm your heart and remind you why character still matters. The storm rolled in fast that evening, sweeping across the coastline with a fury that sent guests scrambling indoors at Seabright Shores Resort. But while the wealthy retreated to their oceanfront suites, Noah Green, 59, remained on the boardwalk, drenched but unbothered. He crouched beside a toppled beach umbrella, struggling to re-anchor it against the howling wind before it could hurt someone. His faded windbreaker clung to his lean frame, soaked through, but he didn't flinch. This wasn't the first storm he'd worked through, and it wouldn't be the last. To the tourists, Noah was just part of the background, like the dunes, the palms, or the resort's polished wood railings, just another worker in a place built for escape. But to a few locals who knew his story, Noah wasn't just a groundskeeper. He was once something more, a father, a husband, a man who ran a beloved surf shop 2 miles down the coast, back when the beach still felt like home. As he secured the final rope, thunder cracked overhead, and a spray of sea mist stung his weathered face. He straightened up slowly, knees stiff from decades of lifeguarding, construction, and now maintenance shifts. His radio buzzed. "All clear on the south path?" a voice asked. "Yeah," he replied, his voice low, gravelly, forgotten. He tucked the radio into his belt, mounted his beat-up cruiser bike, and pedaled down the dimly lit service trail toward his trailer on the edge of town. That's when he saw it. A man in the distance, hunched beside a broken-down beach cruiser, cursing quietly as he fumbled with the chain. The figure looked out of place in the rain, wearing a designer blazer instead of a poncho, his loafers sinking into the wet sand. Noah slowed. He didn't have time. The trail would flood soon, and he needed to get home before the creek swelled over the bridge. But something in the stranger's helpless posture stopped him. Maybe it was muscle memory from the years of pulling people out of riptides, or maybe it was just the way the guy looked, completely out of his depth. With a sigh, Noah turned his bike around and approached, rain pelting his face. "You need a hand with that?" he asked, wiping water from his brow. The man looked up, startled, and in that small moment, 2 very different lives began to change. Noah's hands moved with practiced ease as he squatted beside the broken bicycle, shielding the chain with his body to block the rain. He didn't talk much, just checked the gear teeth, rotated the back wheel, and assessed the derailleur. The younger man watched helplessly, offering a soggy paper towel at one point, which Noah declined with a shake of his head. "Chain's just off track," he murmured. "You were forcing it, weren't you?" The man gave a sheepish nod, but Noah didn't judge. His fingers, though weathered and lined with age, still remembered what it was to fix things. Not just bikes or boards, but lives. He had done it once before. As the rain soaked deeper into his collar, Noah's eyes flicked up briefly to the stormy horizon, and for a split second, his focus wavered. A memory surged, the day the coast was calm and cruel. 15 years ago, his daughter Callie had taken her paddleboard out after school, just like any other day. The tide was low, the sun was warm, and Noah had promised to meet her at the pier after he closed the shop. But a rogue undercurrent had pulled her out just beyond the sandbar. By the time emergency crews arrived, it was too late. The ocean had taken his only child, and with her, most of who he was. His wife, Melissa, hadn't lasted long after that, emotionally or otherwise. Their grief was too different, too consuming. Within the year, she moved inland to be closer to her sister, and the surf shop, Green Tideboards and Repairs, lost its soul. Business dwindled. Noah tried to keep it alive with discounts and local surf classes, but he wasn't the same. He drank too much, slept too little. The walls, once lined with signed surf posters and gear, became bare. 3 years after Callie's death, the bank took the shop. He sold his truck to cover the final bills and ended up in a cramped trailer by the wetlands, taking jobs wherever he could: lifeguard, ground crew, maintenance. But even in his quiet decline, Noah refused to disappear completely. On weekends, he taught first aid and CPR at the youth center, fixed old boards for kids who couldn't afford new ones. The ocean had taken something from him, yes, but it had also taught him what mattered. As he reset the bike chain and gave it a spin, the stranger muttered a quiet, "Thanks." Noah stood slowly, brushing sand from his knees. "Storm's not done yet," he said. "You should get inside." But as he turned to leave, the man stopped him. "Wait, what's your name?" "Noah," he said, without turning around. "Just Noah." Back in his private villa, Graham Bennett peeled off his drenched blazer and let it fall in a heap beside the sliding doors. Rain streaked the glass in sheets as the storm intensified outside, but Graham barely noticed. He stood, barefoot in the polished suite, dripping onto the hardwood floor, staring at the set of perfectly aligned silver tools Noah had used to fix his bike. He hadn't even asked for them back. Graham was used to being served, tipped, catered to. People who helped him did so with expectations. But the man in the storm had wanted nothing. No recognition, no favor, just fixed the chain, gave a quiet nod, and walked away like his worth had nothing to prove. Graham toweled off, poured a scotch, and sat at the edge of the bed, letting the glass rest untouched in his hands. He had come to Seabright Shores undercover, disguised as a mid-level guest with a fake name, hoping to gather intel on growing complaints about staff treatment and management behavior. As CEO of the resort empire, he'd made a habit in recent years of slipping into his own properties unannounced to see how things really worked when no one was performing for him. This particular trip was meant to expose a crooked regional manager and lazy department heads. Instead, he'd been quietly humbled by a man he might have passed 100 times on the boardwalk without ever seeing. He opened the resort's internal employee directory on his phone and began scrolling. He didn't know the man's last name, just Noah. There were a few Noahs on the staff list. Housekeeping, kitchen, spa. Then he saw it. Green, Noah, grounds maintenance/lifeguard, part-time. No accolades, no notes, just a hire date from nearly 9 years ago and a checkbox that read, "Cleared for CPR and emergency response." That was it. Graham tapped the contact icon and copied the employee ID. Then he opened a message thread to Janelle Cross, his longtime operations advisor and someone who had cleaned up more than one mess at his request. Need to file pull on Noah Green, part-time staff. Quiet guy, fixes things. Help me tonight. Something about him feels important. He stared at the message for a long time before hitting send. Outside, lightning cracked across the water. Inside, Graham turned back toward the window and watched the rain blur the edges of the surf. For the first time in a long while, the resort didn't feel like a product or a spreadsheet. It felt like a place that had just reminded him what humanity looks like, and maybe what leadership is supposed to be. By mid-morning, Janelle Cross had assembled everything she could find on Noah Green, though the file felt frustratingly thin. She walked into Graham Bennett's private conference room, still tucked away from the main resort operations, with a manila folder in one hand and a puzzled look on her face. 9 years of employment and this is all they've got on him? Graham asked, raising an eyebrow as he skimmed the single-page personnel sheet. No complaints, no commendations. Just shows up, does his job, and disappears. Janelle nodded. He's not on any internal recognition programs, no feedback logged from management, but he's certified in CPR, AED, and ocean rescue. Recertifies every year on his own dime. He's also one of the only staffers who volunteers to stay late after tropical storms. Graham set the folder down and looked out the window. What about his life before Seabright? Janelle hesitated. That's where it gets more interesting. Public records show he used to own a surf shop, Green Tide Boards and Repairs, about 2 miles south of here. Opened it in the late 90s, ran it for more than a decade, community staple. hosted kids' classes, sponsored local beach cleanups. But around 15 years ago, everything stopped. Business license expired, bank repossession, property sold. That's also the year he lost his daughter. Callie Green, age 16, drowned in a paddleboarding accident not far from the main pier. The room went quiet. Nell continued softly. After that, his marriage dissolved. No criminal records, but there's a brief period of unemployment and several minor alcohol citations. Then it all stops. He resurfaces here at Seabright about 3 years later. No drama, no incidents. He's been working quietly ever since. Graham leaned back in his chair, absorbing the weight of it. And in all this time, no one thought to learn his story? Janelle shook her head. I also checked with the East Shore Youth Center. He volunteers there every Saturday, teaches surf safety, board repair, basic first aid. The director says he never asks for anything, pays for materials when they're short, shows up rain or shine. Kids love him, especially the ones who've lost someone. Graham folded his arms, visibly moved. A man loses everything and still gives what he has left. Janelle nodded. He's not flashy, doesn't network. Don't complain. He's not just fixing beach chairs, Graham. He's patching holes in people. Graham looked down at the photo clipped to the file. Noah in his staff uniform, squinting in the sun. Eyes tired but kind. Then maybe, he said quietly, it's time someone fixed something for him. The sun was just beginning to rise when Noah Green was woken by the sound of something foreign outside his trailer. A soft, controlled, electric hum, nothing like the old trucks or rusted sedans in the neighborhood. Pulling on a sweatshirt and stepping out barefoot onto the dew-slick porch, Noah froze. Parked in front of his modest home was a gleaming electric beach cruiser motorcycle, its chrome gleaming in the morning light. A matte black surf rack mounted to one side. Draped over the handlebars was a manila envelope with his name, handwritten in bold, steady strokes. Around the corner, neighbors had started peeking through curtains, one or two even stepping outside in their robes to gawk. Inside the envelope was a registration form listing Noah as the owner, a full maintenance card for 5 years, and an insurance document already paid in full. At the bottom of the stack sat a small, cream-colored note card. The message was brief, but unmistakable. Kindness doesn't go unnoticed. This isn't charity. It's recognition. Let's talk. GB. Noah stared at the card, heart thudding, his weathered fingers trembling slightly. It didn't make sense. GB? Graham? The man from the storm? The guy with the bike chain and fancy shoes? He turned back toward the cruiser, trying to process the idea that someone, let alone a stranger, would leave a gift like this. Part of him wanted to shove it away, to deny it. He'd lived too many years unseen to believe this moment was real. That's when a sleek black SUV rolled up quietly beside the cruiser. The passenger door opened and out stepped Janelle Cross. Crisp slacks, tailored blazer, and an expression as composed as a lawyer but softer at the edges. She gave him a polite nod and offered her hand. Mr. Green, I represent Mr. Graham Bennett. He asked me to deliver this to you personally, and to extend an invitation. He'd like to meet with you this afternoon. Noah didn't answer right away. He looked at the bike again, then at the card. This some kind of prank? He asked quietly. Janelle smiled almost knowingly. No prank, Mr. Green. Mr. Bennett believes your story matters, and he doesn't give gifts, he makes investments in people he respects. She stepped back toward the SUV. He'll be at the Seabright Cafe at 2 p.m. If you come, he'll be waiting. The soft clink of coffee cups and the murmur of early lunch patrons filled the Seabright Cafe, a modest beachfront spot known more for its sunrise views than its clientele. But tucked in the corner, at a window table overlooking the sand dunes, Graham Bennett sat alone, dressed in a simple linen shirt and khakis, a far cry from the drenched executive Noah had helped just days earlier. When Noah Green walked in, button-down shirt tucked awkwardly into his only pair of decent slacks, silver hair combed back, he felt the eyes of a few curious diners trail him, likely drawn by the impossibly clean electric cruiser parked outside. But Graham stood up quickly, extending his hand with a smile that was free of pretense. "Thank you for coming," Graham said as they shook hands, "and for what you did the other night." Noah eased into the seat across from him, wary but calm. Didn't think fixing a bike chain was worth a motorbike and a handwritten note. "It wasn't just the bike," Graham replied. "It was the way you did it. Quietly, with no angle. That doesn't happen much anymore." They talked over coffee, the kind that comes in mismatched ceramic mugs, and the conversation slowly shifted from pleasantries to purpose. Graham explained who he was, CEO of Seabright Resorts, and currently on an undercover tour to evaluate how his company treated people at every level. "I was expecting to uncover mismanagement," he admitted, "and I did. But I also found someone my company had overlooked for nearly a decade, someone doing more good for this place than any manager." Noah looked out the window. "I'm just trying to stay busy, keep out of trouble." Graham reached into his leather satchel and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. "What if I told you I want to help you do what you're already doing, only bigger?" Inside were architectural plans. Noah recognized the shape instantly. It was a rebuild of his old surf shop, complete with updated classrooms, safety training stations, and a space dedicated to mentoring youth. "We'll call it the Green Tide Center," Graham said. "I've already secured the property. I'll fund construction and staff support. You bring the heart." Noah blinked at the papers. "Why me?" Graham's voice softened. "Because you reminded me what leadership is supposed to be. You've been building character in kids, holding this place together from the shadows. I don't want to give you charity, Noah. I want to give you the platform you've always deserved." Noah leaned back, the weight of the moment settling in. "Let me get this straight. You want to rebuild my past so I can help shape someone else's future?" Graham smiled. "Exactly." That night, back in his trailer, Noah Green sat at the small kitchen table staring at the architectural plans Graham had given him. They were spread out beside his old coffee mug, now cold, and a rusted wrench he'd absent-mindedly been turning in his hands. The drawings showed everything: workbenches, a rescue training area, board repair bays, even a classroom with C-charts and CPR dummies. It was beautiful, ambitious. But the weight of it all felt unbearable. Can I really do this again? The thought looped in his mind like a tide pulling him under. He wasn't the man who opened Green Tide Boards and Repairs decades ago. That man had a wife, a daughter, and a future. He now had a leaky roof and knees that complained every time he stood up too fast. He rubbed the bridge of his nose and exhaled deeply, trying to slow the spiral of doubt building inside him. Later, he found himself at the edge of the beach, not far from the rocky outcrop where he'd built a small driftwood shrine years ago, a tribute to Callie, his daughter, whose paddleboard leash and faded photograph still rested beneath a piece of etched sea glass. He sat beside it, brushing sand off the base, and whispered, "They want to bring the shop back, Cal. Want me to run it? Teach again?" His voice cracked, and he paused, letting the wind respond in silence. "I don't know if I can. I don't know if I should." As the waves lapped the shoreline, his hand drifted to his coat pocket, where he kept her old whistle, still strung on the original cord, a bit frayed but intact. She'd worn it every summer during lifeguard training, grinning proudly when she beat boys twice her size in the timed drills. He lifted it to his lips and gave a soft blow. The sharp sound rang out across the empty beach, cutting through his hesitation. In that moment, the past didn't feel like a weight, but a reason. The next morning, a message pinged on his phone. It was from Tommy, a teen from the youth center. "Mr. G, I fixed that busted fin box like you showed me. Mom says you're a miracle worker. When's our next session?" Noah smiled for the first time in days. He folded the blueprint carefully, put the whistle around his neck, and walked over to the electric cruiser parked outside. If life was giving him a second shot, he'd ride into it, not away from it. 3 months later, the Green Tide Surf and Rescue Center stood tall and sun-washed, just steps from the shoreline, its gleaming metal roof catching the morning light like a beacon. A modest crowd had gathered for the grand opening: resort staff, local teens, their parents, and even a few curious guests from sea-bright shores. A news crew hovered nearby, capturing footage of the ribbon cutting. But Noah Green paid them no mind. He stood in his signature red lifeguard shirt and khaki shorts, his silver whistle now polished and resting against his chest, not as a relic of the past, but as a symbol of the future. He didn't do speeches. Graham Bennett handled that part with charm and grace, describing the center as a place built not on profit, but on principle, inspired by a man who didn't ask to be seen, but chose to see others. When the ribbon finally dropped, cheers broke out, but the real celebration happened afterward. Dozens of teens, many from the youth center where Noah had volunteered for years, rushed to explore the center's features. First aid classrooms, board repair bays, and a shaded open deck designed for CPR practice and water safety instruction. Noah walked among them, offering quiet guidance. He showed one girl how to tie a rescue line knot, helped another adjust her fin screws, and gently corrected a boy's paddling stance on the simulator. His movements were steady, sure. The hands that once scrubbed pool tiles now trained the next generation of lifesavers. Inside the main building hung 2 framed photographs. One was a smiling portrait of Callie in her lifeguard uniform, captioned with a simple plaque, "For those who never came back, but made sure others would." The second was a candid photo of Noah and Graham standing in the rain months ago, unposed, unaware, caught in the moment of tire repair that had started it all. Beneath it read, "Some rescues aren't made in the water." As the day wound down, Noah found himself on the training deck, watching a new group of kids practice. A boy wiped out on the soft sand mat, and the others laughed, not to mock, but to encourage. It was the kind of laughter that sounded like healing. Noah leaned against the railing, eyes crinkling at the edges, not from exhaustion, but something warmer. He wasn't just a lifeguard anymore. He was a life giver, a restorer of second chances, and proof that the waves which knock us down can also carry us home. The late afternoon sun painted the beach in amber and gold as Noah Green sat on the edge of the training deck, his bare feet resting on the warm wood planks, watching the final surf session of the day wrap up. The shouts of teenagers echoed down the shoreline, joyful, fearless, alive. He watched as Tommy, the wiry teen who once doubted himself at every turn, guided a younger boy through CPR steps with a confidence that surprised even the kid's parents. Noah smiled, not the weary half-smile he used to give, but something fuller, something earned. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with a message. "Fixed a leash snap on my own today, you'd be proud." Just initials, but he knew who it was. Another student paid it forward, another quiet ripple from a moment of mentorship. He rose slowly and stepped inside the center. The cool interior smelled of salt, sunscreen, and cedarwood, new and nostalgic all at once. On the wall behind the front desk, carved into reclaimed driftwood, were the words, "Legacy isn't what you leave behind, it's what you leave in others." He'd written them himself after the center opened, back when he still wasn't sure if he deserved any of this. But now, walking through halls filled with energy, tools in use, and purpose in motion, he understood what Graham had meant. This wasn't charity, it was continuation. Near the workshop, Noah paused by the framed photo of his daughter Callie, now mounted under soft lighting. She smiled forever in that picture, eyes squinting under a lifeguard visor, sand clinging to her cheeks. He reached out and gently adjusted the frame by instinct, something Melissa used to do. "You'd have loved this place," he whispered. "They even keep the boards waxed." His throat tightened, but it was no longer the choking kind of grief. It was gentler now, like the sea on a calm tide. Outside, Graham Bennett stood near the parking lot, chatting with a group of resort staff. He caught Noah's eye and gave a small nod. Not a wave, not a speech, just a look of mutual understanding between two men who'd carried their burdens in silence until they finally decided to do something with them. Noah returned the nod, then turned back toward the water. As a cool breeze rolled in and the sun dipped below the dunes, Noah exhaled deeply. He didn't get his old life back, but he'd built something stronger in its place. A living, breathing legacy. One ride through a rainstorm had changed everything, and now the tide was his again. The story of Noah Green reminds us that purpose isn't something we retire from, it's something we carry, even when life tries to take it away. After unimaginable loss, Noah could have given up. Instead, he chose quiet acts of service, fixing what he could, teaching when asked, and showing up when no one else did. His selfless act of helping a stranger in the rain became the moment that reopened a door he thought was closed forever. The lesson here is powerful. True impact doesn't come from titles, wealth, or recognition. It comes from character. Noah's humility, resilience, and compassion rippled far beyond that single stormy night. He didn't chase legacy, he lived it. In the skills he passed down, the youth he uplifted, and the integrity he embodied every day. This story teaches us that second chances often arrive quietly, disguised as moments of human connection. And when they do, we must be willing to say yes, not because we're ready, but because the world needs what we still have to give.